In today's video, we're going to be taking a look and ranking the top 10 NHL players that are going to be unrestricted free agents this summer in 2018. And that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, I thought it'd be a good exercise to take a look at some of the top pending UFA free agents here for this summer of 2018. There's a fair bit of top players and big names that are going to be available, so I thought we should take a look and rank them from 10 up to 1 and take a look at where might they sign. Are they going to stay with their current teams or will they be moving on? If they are going to be moving on, where might be some possible destinations we may see them land come July 1st or beyond this offseason? So let's get started here. Number 10, Neal and Henrik Sedin. Obviously being twins and playing for the same team their whole careers, we'll include them as one here since they basically play like they are one together. So Neal and Henrik Sedin have played their entire careers for the Vancouver Canucks. It seems more than likely that they will probably sign in Vancouver and stay remain Canucks for their careers. I know it seemed important to the Canuck organization that they do that. Obviously, they're going to probably only offer a short-term deal. I would think more than likely a one-year deal, maybe two at most. But I think more than likely they stay in Vancouver. I really don't see them leaving the Canucks organization. But you never know. I mean, the Canucks may go in a different direction here. There really haven't been a whole lot of dialogue, except earlier in the season we did hear Jim Benning and Trevor Linden mention that they'd like to see the Sedins remain Canucks for their entire career. So we'll see what happens. But leave a comment down below. Do you think the Sedins are going to return next year? And if they do, are they going to stay in Vancouver? Moving along to number 9, we get Paul Stastny, formerly of the St. Louis Blues, now a member of the Winnipeg Jets due to the trade deadline deal that sent him to Winnipeg. Obviously, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent this summer, coming off a deal that was paying him $7 million per year. I think one thing we can all agree on, regardless of where he goes, he will be making less money than $7 million per year. I think at this stage in his career, with what he brings and offers, I think he'll probably be probably a $4 or $5 million player, be my guess. Maybe 5.5, you never know. But a lot of teams he'd make an excellent number 3 center. Some teams he'd be number 2. But if he can get himself in the right situation, like he is in Winnipeg, where he can be like a 2-3 guy, I think that he can be very effective and still have a lot to offer at this stage of his career. I mean, he's really not that old. He should still have some miles left on the tread, and there should be some good productive years yet out of Paul Stastny. So I don't really think long term, I don't think he stays in Winnipeg. I think with everything they've got going on there, they do have some key players that are going to be RFAs that are going to need some raises for next year. I only see him staying in Winnipeg as a rental situation. I do think he moves on this summer. I don't think he goes back to St. Louis, but there's certainly a number of teams out there that he could be helpful for. So, I mean, where do you think he may go? Where does Paul Stastny go? Leave some comments down below. A couple of suggestions for me. I would think a couple of them maybe. For example, depending on what goes on with John Tavares, I think the New York Islanders are a possibility. They could use some more depth at center, and for the right price, maybe the Islanders might be a landing spot. But at the same time, their money needs to be more invested in defense and goaltending, so that may not work in New York, but it is a possibility. Depending on what Joe Thornton does in San Jose, maybe the Sharks might look for some more depth at center as well. So hard to say there, but I think Paul Stastny definitely leaves Winnipeg for sure and moves on to a new destination next summer. So certainly leave some comments down below. Where do you think is a good landing spot for Paul Stastny once the offseason kicks off here? Number 8 on our list is David Perron of the Vegas Golden Knights. Obviously, one of the many guys in the Golden Knights that was brought in on an expiring contract. Many people expected they'd be sold off at the deadline, but again, look how well they're doing, and obviously that didn't happen this year. David Perron's having an outstanding season for Vegas. I think there's a pretty decent chance he re-signs there. I think a lot of the guys that are having tremendous success this season are having a lot of fun. They seem to be a great team, which plays a big role in their success as well. So I fully suspect that the odds are good that he stays. However, he's also proven that over his career that he can be a pretty decent second, third line scoring winger. So there certainly will be lots of interest if he decides to explore the market further. But considering all the guys in Vegas, I think the reason they're having so much success is that they just play well as a team. You often see guys having career years and then they leave go to other teams and they just don't see that same level of success playing with different players, different city, different team, and it's just not the right fit. For a lot of these guys, they found the right fit with Vegas and they've been extremely strong as a team. So I think the odds of Perron staying in Vegas is really strong. But you leave some comments down below. Let me know, what do you think? Does Perron re-sign with Vegas or does he move on to a new team? Now, number 7, Jumbo Joe Thornton. Obviously, he's going to be a free agent this year, coming off back-to-back years of having a fairly big injury and surgery as a result. Question 1, is Joe Thornton going to continue? And if so, does he stay in San Jose? Personally, I think it's quite possible that he does play next year. I think there is a slim possibility he may retire, but I think there's a pretty decent chance he continues on. I know he's still chasing that elusive Stanley Cup. Depending on what goes on with the Sharks this playoff season, and obviously the other thing is obviously we're waiting for him to return. So if he's able to come back, have a playoff run, if they were to win the Stanley Cup, I think he'd go out on top. But if that doesn't happen, and the odds are certainly going to be against him because they have some tough competition to get out of the Western Conference, then I say he probably continues to chase the dream, and I think more likely he does stay in San Jose. But there's certainly going to be some teams offering him some money. I know last summer it was very close that both him and Patrick Perron were going to Toronto. I'm not sure if a lot of fans out there realize that, but apparently during the free agency first kicked off, there was a pretty good possibility that the Leafs were going to take both of them. It didn't work out that way, and Jumbo Joe ended up staying in San Jose. But that it was close to happening. Number 6, we're going to take a look at Ilya Kovalchuk. Obviously, he's been playing over in the KHL. We did a video not too long ago, a few weeks back, discussing Kovalchuk's impending return to the NHL and some potential landing spots. If you missed that video, there'll be a YouTube card up here. You can go watch it. Certainly check that out. Or you can wait until this video is complete. It'll also be on the end screen for you to take a look at. So I personally, in that video, said a few landing spots for Kovalchuk. One of them was that he was rumored to be looking at New York. Now, I know the New York Rangers are going through a rebuild, and some fans out there, especially Rangers fans, might be scratching their heads going, well, why would he want to go to New York when they're going through a rebuild? And you know what? To be honest, if you take a look here, I think it's quite possible, and we'll see how this plays out, that the Rangers could go through a very quick rebuild, and this rebuild could basically become a retool if things are done properly. If you look at how things have gone so far for the Rangers leading into the trade deadline, they obviously gained back quite a bit of draft picks and young prospects to kind of fill out their roster. They have a lot of guys that are getting a chance to play right now to see what they're capable of. But really, it's been heavily rumored that they may try to bring back guys like Rick Nash and Michael Grabner in the offseason. So it is a possibility. Obviously, guys like Miller and McDonough, they're not coming back. They're still under contract. That's not going to happen. But for example, I mean, they're going to have a lot of cap space. So if they could attract a big free agent like Kovalchuk, maybe you bring back Nash, you throw in some young guys, like if things could come together quickly in New York if they're done properly. I'm not going to say that's definitely going to happen, but I can see it being a possibility. I'm not convinced Ilya Kovalchuk. I think he's more about the money than he is about the winning, in my own opinion. So if the Rangers offer him the right price, regardless of where they're at with the franchise, I can see them. I can see him signing there. So let me know what you think down in the comments. Does Ilya Kovalchuk return to the NHL? It's highly been rumored that he will. And are the Rangers a good landing spot for him if he does? Number 5, the real deal, James Neal, Vegas Golden Knights. Obviously, it's heavily been speculated that they very well may extend him, but as of the recording of this video, that has yet to be done. They have extended some of their guys who were pending UFAs. Going into this season, it was heavily rumored that they were going to take a lot of those guys and end up selling them off at the deadline. Well, boy, have things ever worked out differently for Vegas, and they've got a fantastic team that's heading for the playoffs. Not only heading for the playoffs, but in first place at that. So it's been quite a surprise this year, and I think some of the guys in Vegas would certainly welcome a new contract to stay there. They've gotten some of them done already, but James Neal certainly been putting up the goals in Vegas. He's pretty consistent 25 to 30 goal guy throughout his career. He's certainly going to attract a lot of attention on teams that need scoring. I can see a team like St. Louis. I can see a team like San Jose. Those two guys are going after a scoring winger hardcore. Even the Flyers too. I know it was heavily rumored that the Flyers were looking at some wingers during the trade deadline as well. So I can see any of those teams going hard after James Neal, but I think there's a pretty good chance he stays in Vegas. But if not, one of those other teams, I'm sure, will give him the right price and might lure him away from Sin City. So moving along, let's take a look here. The next one up, number 4, is going to be Evander Kane. Obviously just traded at the deadline to the San Jose Sharks. And so far, I think he's fit in pretty well there. So far, it's been a very limited sample size, but his time in San Jose has gone pretty well so far. And personally, I really like him as a fit there. I think he fits in well. He seems to have grown up and shown some maturity. And like I mentioned before, when we discussed the Evander Kane trade, I think they've got the right group of guys there in the right leadership group that if anything looks like it's heading down the wrong path, that they can keep him on the straight and narrow. But I think he's at a stage in his career where he's old enough and mature enough that he's beyond those baggage years. I think are behind him. At least I certainly hope so for his sake, as well as the Sharks. But I think that depending on how this year goes, I think there's a pretty good chance he re-signs in San Jose myself. Depending on how the rest of the year goes, they're going to have lots of cap space. So they certainly have the resources to do so, even if they bring back Thornton. My guess is if they bring back Thornton again, it's probably going to be for a lower value than he made this year. I think it's quite possible that they do that. If not, if he does end up moving on, the same teams I mentioned before, looking for scoring wingers, you get San Jose, St. Louis, maybe even the Flyers. Wouldn't completely shock me to see the Devils go after a player too. They're on the rise. So there's going to be lots of market for Evander Kane. But I think there's a pretty good chance if it works out, and I think the Sharks really try to keep him beyond this season. Number 3, James Van Riemsdyk. The Toronto Maple Leafs currently obviously didn't go anywhere at the deadline. The Leafs didn't make any sense for them to trade him or Bozak or Komarov at this time. They basically used them as their own rentals. Personally, I think James Van Riemsdyk will move on in the offseason for a couple of reasons. One, the Leafs have a lot of contracts for their younger guys to get done, and even though they probably could squeeze it under the cap, if he were to take a little bit of a discount, I think it's possible that it could happen money-wise. But to be honest, I just don't think he's one of Babcock's guys, and I think if the Leafs have their way, I don't see them investing the proper amount of money into Van Riemsdyk long term. I think he's going to garner probably a 6-7 year deal from a lot of teams that need scoring. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see him either go back to Philly. Obviously that's where he came from when he was first drafted. Plus he's from that area as well, I believe. So going to the Flyers is certainly a possibility. I wouldn't be surprised to see him. There's a lot of teams going to be interested. You can throw the Sharks back in there if they don't keep Kane. If they keep Kane, then they'll be out on JVR. The St. Louis Blues are another team. Even their rivals in Montreal. Montreal needs scoring. JVR would certainly help them out a lot. They're going to have a lot of cap space too. There will be no shortage of interest in JVR, but I do say that he does leave Toronto and he does land elsewhere next year. So leave me some comments down below. Where do you think JVR plays in 2018-2019 season? Number 2, we've got free agent defenseman of the Washington Capitals, John Carlson. He is going to be a very highly sought after free agent. I say this goes to July 1. I don't see him getting an extension done any sooner. Although I think the Capitals would like to keep him. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to match the contract. You never know. They may pony up and find a way to keep him. But I think at this point, I think it's highly probable that John Carlson leaves Washington after this year. He's going to be able to demand a 7-year contract at some pretty big bucks. He's having a pretty fantastic season. He may or may not be one of the top 3 finalists for the Norris Trophy, as we discussed the other day. And if you missed that video where we discussed the top contenders for the Norris Trophy this year, there'll be a YouTube card up here. You can click and watch that video as well. But certainly that's he's having that type of year where at least he's in the conversation for sure. I have no doubt he'll be top 5 in the Norris voting. Not sure if he'll end up being a finalist, but he's having a tremendous year, and he's really progressed in the growth of his game over the last number of years. He's going to demand big bucks, and I can see him leaving Washington. There's certainly plenty of teams out there that need that type of rear guard, and they'll certainly pony up the money. I know a team that comes to mind, for example, is Montreal. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of change, I think, in that organization, and hard to say if they'll be able to bring him in or not. But I think they're a team that could certainly use him, that's for certain. But there's plenty of teams out there that need a top defender. With all the changes going on with the Rangers, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to lure him away from Washington as well. You just never know. I could see Carlson going to a different team. I just don't, for some reason, my gut says he doesn't stay in Washington. Although they really should do everything they can to keep him because he's really a top defender in the game. So leave me some comments down below. Where do you see John Carlson going next year? That leads us to our number 1 pick. Probably won't come as any surprise because we just did another video discussing this player's contract and what's going to happen with him next year. But the New York Islanders, Johnny Tavares, by far and away the most sought after free agent of 2018. There's going to be no shortage of options for Tavares. There's going to be teams throwing money at him like you wouldn't believe if he makes it to July 1st on the open market. I know a couple of teams. You're going to look at the Montreal Canadiens, the St. Louis Blues are probably going to be throwing the most money at him for sure, but he's one of those types of players, just like we discussed about Carlson at the trade deadline. You know, as much as if teams don't always have very many opportunities to land this type of player, so when you do, and you think he's available, whether it's through trade or free agency, you have to go all in and try to do it, because it can really be a franchise-changing move for your team. So I can certainly see lots of teams going after him, and as the other video indicated, at this point I'm going to say it's a 50-50 shot that he returns to the Islanders next season. I think they haven't done enough to build a winning team there. I was very disappointed with Gareth Snow not doing more at the trade deadline to increase and enhance their goaltending and defense situation to keep the puck out of the net. They have no problem scoring, but if they can't get better on defense, then that team is not going to have any success, and they're not going to be able to put a winning team together and convince John Tavares to stay with the Islanders long term. Obviously, they signed Josh Bailey. They got a new arena in place. They do have some positives that are in place for the Islanders, but there's just not quite enough, I don't think. So leave me some comments down below. Where do you see Tavares going next year? Do you see him staying with the Islanders, or do you see him heading out? If you're new to the channel as well, consider subscribing. We have uploads here every day. We cover all 31 teams. If you're a big hockey fan, you won't be disappointed by subscribing to our channel here. Also, if you're new to the channel and you haven't checked us out on social media, you can see us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You're going to see our Twitter logo on the screen right here. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.